I told you stories about living with my roommates while I was at college. Well, now I feel it's time to tell you about the stories about my college itself. For starters, my college sucked. It was a for-profit, corrupt institution that sole purpose was to suck money out of art students who didn't know any better. It didn't even look like a school. It looked like an office building, and we only had 3 floors that belonged to the college. 3 floors! Are you kidding me? The school was so small I could walk around every part in less than 10 minutes. I'm not exaggerating. To all you kids out there, if you're gonna go to college, don't go to a for-profit school. Especially if it's owned by the EDMC. Why did I go there? Because I grew up thinking life was peachy, but then I got hit with cold hard reality about how many evil jerks there are out there who love making people miserable. That being said, despite the fact that people running the school were corrupt leeches, there were plenty of teachers who cared for the students and made it their goal to help them succeed. And I met several friends who were just as passionate about animation as I was, and who I'm still friends with to this day. They're friends that were so important to me, and I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for them. Okay, so my overall college experience was not what I expected. I remember one time there was a hole in the wall in one of the classrooms. Instead of fixing it, the workers just put a piece of paper over it. A+ work. Couldn't have done it better myself. Oh, the curriculum at the school was always fun to deal with. Get this. I was an animation major, right? Well, my first quarter, I got put in audio, color theory, and image manipulation. I'm an animator. What do I need this crap for? I had this one class called Emerging Technologies for Animation. What the heck is that even? The teacher, I'll call him Mr. Gray, came in every day and asked us, "Well, what do you guys want to do today?" "How should we know? You're the teacher. Teach us." Want to know what I learned in that class? I don't even remember. I had the same teacher for another class called Animation Studio, a class that was meant to be dedicated to students being allowed to make a 1-minute animation without the influence of the teacher. I wanted to make a 2D animation. Well, this teacher didn't want any of that. He wanted me to make a 3D animation. I had to argue and argue with him. Keep in mind, I was supposed to be able to make an animation however I wanted without the influence of the teacher. Finally, I caved in and made a 2D animation with 3D elements. That animation can be found here. And finally, I had the same teacher for another class, acting for animation. Well, you think with a class by that name, we did a lot of acting exercises. Want to know what we actually did? Book presentations. Now that I think about it, I did a lot of acting in that class. I had to act like I cared. I wasn't the only one who had trouble with Mr. Gray. I heard a lot about him from others, and he used to be a lot worse. One student told me that a female student was a heck of a good artist. She drew really well. Only problem was, her 3D modeling skills weren't that good. But she was such a good 2D artist. You'd think that would be enough to get her somewhere, right? Not to Mr. Gray. He told her to drop out and work at McDonald's. She cried. Then there was one class that Mr. Gray was teaching, which they weren't doing anything in. Sound familiar? One student got frustrated and looked up some tutorials online, learning what they were supposed to be learning in the class. This student told Mr. Gray he learned what he was supposed to learn from online tutorials and asked what he was doing at the school. Mr. Gray replied with, "That's a good question. Why are you here?" Wow. How was this guy not fired again? There was one teacher at the college. He was the best teacher in the animation program. I'll call him Mr. Wong. He told us a lot of hilarious stories. The kind of stories that you would hear and say to yourself, that can't be real. Oh, it's real. He told us one time he was at his desk and a student walked up and told him that another student was in the back watching porn in the middle of class. Mr. Wong walked up behind the student and asked, "You enjoying that?" The student then got super embarrassed and closed all of his tabs. He told us about another student who was a complete stoner. He was in his last quarter and was in a class where students put their portfolio together. Well, this guy was turning in his portfolio for Mr. Wong to grade, and all the pages were covered in Cheeto dust. Towards my last quarter at the college, I was going to get a drink at the water fountain next to the girls' bathroom, and from inside, I can hear one girl in there belting out a song. She was practically screaming every single lyric. Now time to talk about this one teacher. I'll call him Mr. Mayo. So I had Mr. Mayo for 3 classes in a row. When I had him for 3D modeling, the beginning modeling class, we went from building a generic animal to building a highly detailed car. What? How the heck do you expect beginners to make that big of a jump? That's insane! For 3D animation, we went from animating a cube to animating a rig in 2 weeks. I'm pretty sure we skipped several steps on learning animation. And in 3D character animation, he made us do 3 walk cycles over 1 weekend. We can barely get 1 done in that time, let alone 3! And in all the classes I had him in, I noticed that he was always a half hour late. Spent most of the class talking about random stuff not related to what we were learning. He gave us our assignment, and then he left the room and there was no sign of him. Did you need help? Too bad, you were COL. It wasn't until my last quarter until I found out why he was as weird as he was. There would be times I would walk by his office, his door would be locked, and there was a do not disturb sign on his door. It turned out he would be sneaking female students into his office and... yeah, I had a teacher who was more concerned with screwing his students rather than teaching them, and the reason he left was because the dad of one of the girls found out and was going to press charges against him. Huh. Just when you think you've heard it all. So my college experience could have gone better, but I don't regret it. I met some wonderful friends, and I did learn plenty of techniques that I will say have influenced me for the better. Like I said, before you go to college, make sure you do the right amount of research and pick the best one for you. Don't just settle on the first one you find, like I did. Stay away from for-profit colleges. But if it's all you can afford, be ready to break your butt working hard because they sure as heck ain't gonna help you. Do you guys have any crazy school stories? If you do, write them down in the comments. I love to read them. Until next time, take it easy, fam.